Hello and welcome. This is Karin Eglinton, and you're about to listen in on a real psychic reading with one of my clients, Hanna. Hanna has been extremely generous in allowing me to make public this session that we recorded together. During this reading, I'm meeting her for the first time. Prior to our call, I've only learned her name and time zone, and that her partner, whom I've connected with on multiple occasions, suggested that she reach out. Before we started recording the call, she shared that she's an accomplished helping professional, but nevertheless, she was struggling to get her financial needs met. Hanna asked to use the session to explore what she could do to improve her money situation. She also asked if we could look into her next stage of physical healing as she's been living with chronic illness. The recording is largely unedited, other than me cutting out a couple of identifying details for my client's privacy, and the short period in which I meditate for a few minutes during the call to put me in the right space for psychic reading. Every intuitive works a little bit differently, and every client session is unique. However, there are ways in which we share the same iconic struggles and big life questions. In addition to sharing with you what my own style of psychic reading looks like, which has its own quirks and a meandering style, I hope that if you're asking yourself similar questions as my client Hanna, you'll find some insights and jumping off points for your own discovery in this reading. If you'd like to work with me in one of these sessions, you'll find all the information you need in the video description. Great, Hannah. Okay, so I am connecting with you through a color I'm visualizing at the chakra at the top of your head. And this is kind of a plum color, like a reddish purple. I'm just going to match this color and create a resonance between us. Okay, so already I'm having a lot of impressions coming in, but I want them to be very organized so I can communicate them to you in the clearest possible way. And so I'm gonna begin organizing the input through creating a symbolic flower in my visual screen that's going to represent you at this time. And then I'm going to add in the intentions that you've shared. So I'm just doing this to kind of take a snapshot of you right now. And so I'm calling in this plum colored energy into a flower and letting it show me what it wants to show me. Okay, so I'm gonna tell you about this flower, and the flower has, kind of symbolism throughout about your energetic state and you in general at this time of our meeting. So this flower is so tall, it's incredible. It's like it's growing in front of my eyes um, on a thin, long stem. And the flowers at the top, so it's like as though I'm kind of trying to zoom or follow with my visual camera up to where the flowers themselves are, which are also it's like a very saturated purple blue. Makes me think about I don't know if you know like primrose flowers or like that kind of like five petals, velvety kind of texture with a yellow center. Um, and I'll tell you a little bit about what I notice. So the purple blue comes up often with clients who are just they are here with a mission. Um, they're incredibly driven to accomplish something of worth in the world, have like a meaningful engagement. um, where, you know, their impact feels measured or resonant with the contents of their soul, so to speak. That's the best way I can put it. So it's like career
Hmm.
driven, it does not do it justice. It's a like a spiritual kind of devotion to what you do for others. And at the center there's the yellow, which um I see yellow, especially like this very bright yellow at the center of these flowers, kind of like it's a messenger of like a strong mind, strong intellect, strong analytical capacities that are combined with a creative problem solving power. So this is already kind of jumping out at me about you as this flower represents you in this moment. There's a lot going on here with the flower, especially with the movement upward. And so when I see like long stems in the flower, that also often talks to me about a person who's very idealistic and values driven. Sometimes maybe even hearing the message from the outside like you're too idealistic or you should compromise in the things that you believe in, and then this is the flower of somebody who's like no, I will never compromise. um you can let me know if that resonates.
Yes. Oh, totally.
Yes. So this is like a striking feature of your energy pattern of being extremely values driven and not compromising on that. Um so let me see if there's anything else that this flower wants to communicate before we start exploring all the other images coming up and the question of your career and especially your income and you having enough in the world.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, everything that you said highly resonates.
okay,
That
cool.
sounds a lot like me.
Yeah, yeah. Um, okay, so this will I'll have to unpack this, but there's an interesting thing that's happening to the flower as I'm speaking to you, and that is that there's images of people coming out of the flower, like little human beings come walk out of this flower. And I don't know what this means, so I'll have to explore it a little bit more. Hmm. So I'm growing the image, and yeah, so there's a lot coming up. It feels related to what I said in terms of values and ideals. It feels like a complex idea is being communicated through this image. So it feels like your heart and mind are focused on, you know, what is of benefit to humanity, like being very focused on the well-being of human beings, and especially kind of like alienated by white colonialist culture, kind of like almost like as though you had become an anthropologist of this strange culture, trying to unpack it and trying to kind of crack the code of how can we turn this around? How can we take this dystopia basically
Hmm.
and um, and bring it to a healing place? And with the understanding, I feel like you do have a very science-minded side to you. It's not all of who you are, but there's like a strong kind of cornerstone there. And
Hmm.
so then there's kind of like looking at things from the science-minded perspectives, like um, I don't hear or notice here in this image this feeling of like a return to what humanity maybe used to be at its roots when it was still healthy, like that kind of thing feels like your mind's more future forward than that. um,
Mhm.
where, when people kind of look at the human dystopia sides of the reality that we're living in, a lot of people are like, well, can't we return to what it was before? And I am seeing kind of like um, this feeling of advancement or progress in contrast to what I'm saying, that I don't see that in you as much.
Mhm.
I think that you'd be interested and curious about extracting principles out of whatever it is that our past has to offer, but it feels like there is a strong kind of like, let's look at what the evidence shows is good for us, that kind of thing.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm, I'm just taking a sip of water here. Okay, so that's coming up as the setup or this kind of overture that your energy field is presenting me with. Um, so I'm going to ask the question. I'm going to ask several questions of your field to share with me what it is that will bring you the material, financial, monetary ease that you need to thrive in this world. Um, so let me think how I want to set this up. Hmm. I'm gonna ask for a symbol of this, um, like the perfect abundance for you, and kind of put it side by side with your energy field with your flower right now to see where they interact and maybe where the disconnect lies. Okay, so I'm asking first for a color that represents Hannah's perfect state of financial abundance, wealth, and however she determines this to look. Very interesting. So the colors, there's three colors that come, so it's interesting because we have three areas of exploration here with us today. So it's three colors, but it's like a gradient of magenta, orange, and green. That already tells me something because colors symbolize something, but I'm also going to put them into a symbol. So magenta has to do with being very loud in your authenticity. Um, Orange kind of goes along with it, and I often see them together because orange is about creativity and kind of like a passionate self expression. So you can imagine how these two things go together. And the green has to do with healing and balance and a strong, heartfelt connection. So I'm going to bring these together into another flower. Let's see if it stays a flower. Right. Okay. So the colors, when I bring them into, I wanted it to be a flower, but it's something else. Um, it goes underground, uh, and very deep down into the ground. So I'm just following them, and there's an interesting thing happening in my screen where there's an overlay of a funny character on top of what I'm directing. So I'm gonna explore that. It feels like it could be some of the obstacles that are coming up. So when the colors settle, they settle into something that's like the shape of a pearl, like a round little sphere, but it looks like it's a little kind of like a sanctuary on the inside, like a little pod that somebody could go to be in silence, maybe be cozy, meditate, and it's really, really small right now. And so I'm curious about how it's so small and so far underground and what this is saying. But I'm gonna explore the interior. It's like it's bigger on the inside than the outside, so I feel like that says something. Um, Surrounding this little pearl sanctuary are several figures that So I feel like, yes, there's kind of like an external interference of some kind. External could be like, belief programmings, or it could be actual people in your life whose influence kind of feels like it in one way or another hampers the development of the sanctuary into something, um, into its full evolution, basically. Like, just
Mhm.
because it's small doesn't mean anything bad. Um, but since you had shared that, it seems to be like there's a consistent not enough money flowing in, I wonder if this pearl actually wants to get bigger. So I'm gonna explore these foreign energies, and the first one that came, this is where I start to tell you funny images.
Mhm.
It's like a caricature, like a cartoon character of like an anthropomorphic type horse with like a cowboy hat, and it's wearing overalls and they're blue. So um okay. And then there's at least two more kind of spots on the screen where I'm seeing like these hovering shapes, and then one of them is like it looks kind of like the shadow of a tiger, but it's dark, um, kind of translucent. Yeah, so like a shadow. And then the third one is even more nebulous, like it does not want me to look at it. So I'll come
Mhm.
back to it in a minute. I'm just gonna explore the first one. So this horse-like character, I'm asking, is this just belong to you? Is belong in your field of energy? No, this feels like a person in your life, or almost like a person that you've met multiple times, kind of thing, like embodied in different people. Um, Somebody who has this kind of trickstery sense of humor, um, likable, like socially likable, sort of at first glance, but deeply unreliable.
Mhm.
Somebody who's like too cool to be real, if that makes any sense. Like, yeah,
Mhm.
somebody who's
Mhm.
like in um solves one problem, causes five more. This kind of
Mhm.
thing.
Mhm.
Um, it sounds like maybe you recognize this person.
I've had several uh, significant relationships with people with personality disorders.
Uh-huh.
Um, like, like we're talking like psychopathy
Yeah.
and uh, narcissism, and
Mhm.
some of those relationships being of my choosing, and some not. Some
Right.
that were, you know, like step family kind of situation.
Got it. Yes. Mhm. Okay.
But several different characters, so yeah.
Right. Yes, that's the sense I had with like, oh, different people, different incarnations of the same pattern.
Hmm.
And
None that I'm currently in contact with, though,
no,
to my
no,
understanding.
this is very underground. And so like I'm seeing this like very underneath your current incarnation, so to speak. I'm saying incarnation
Hmm.
like it's lifetimes, but I mean like who you are in this moment. This is far from you, but it's existing in your relational field as a pattern.
Hmm.
Um, it's as though if we could say it kind of esoterically, the person you've been is has had to borrow resources from the person you are right now. Um, and so it feels here as though in this place where maybe like you want to think about time and energy kind of flowing in different ways than we're used to in our linear world. And I don't want to get super esoteric, like we'll get to concrete things hopefully. But there's like this feeling of the energetic imprint of this still weighing on your energy field, despite the connections not being something that you're quote putting up with.
Mhm.
And so this could be very much related to the trauma healing question as well as the physical healing question. I'm gonna inquire more about this, but this could be where this starts to come together, converge. Okay, so let me see. Where else can I see? I'm asking to receive more clarity about the role of these energies in Hannah's life right now. That how is it that they're impacting the question of income? Okay, so I'm being guided to look at your energy field directly at your aura. So I'm gonna put a pin on the images for a moment and switch gears and have a look at you energetically. Okay, so I'm looking at the outline of your aura. You have a very interesting looking energy field right now, and this could be because you've been doing a huge healing journey, but you have like it looks unusual to me how I'm seeing your aura. Not good, not bad, just very unusual. And I will describe it to you in a minute. I feel like the images are trying to communicate to me what this answer is in rapid fashion, so I'm trying to keep track. There's an image of a woman, and she is wearing uniform, looks like military uniform, blue, and a hat. And she has like she's hovering in midair, like she has no legs. Asking, what is this all about? And is this showing me an answer to my question? Okay, so this um this feels like the part of you that has had to adapt to these energies that more kind of I don't know if lumping them all under the umbrella of predatory is the right word, but it's the best word I have right now because I can
Mhm.
tell because of the three different categories, this very shadowy one, the tigers, and this kind of horse-like character. They have different qualities to them, so the horse-like is sort of a trickster energy, unreliable, but sort of lovable. Um, the tiger feels kind of opportunistic and kind of underhanded. And then this third one that I was like, this feels really nebulous. That's the one that feels kind of like the most toxic, and insidious. And so there's
Mhm.
these three layers almost. I'm just gonna call them predatory for the sake of uh, not articulating all of that every single time I mention that. Is that okay?
Mhm.
Yeah, okay. So this woman who looks like she's in the military somehow. I'm like, do you actually have actual family in the military or have you ever been involved in the military?
Um, I have n I have not personally. My grandfathers on both of my family side were. I don't believe either of them saw. Actually, no, my mom's side, he wasn't. They were all colorblind, so they didn't serve. But my dad's side, I had grandfather was a colonel,
Mm,
but he served, but he never saw combat.
got it.
But I'm remembering I have had a psychic reading before. I
Mhm.
totally forgot about it. It was about my health,
Uh-huh.
and she brought up this military theme as well.
Yeah, yeah. So, yes, because this feels like you, but it could be sort of like an intergenerational piece as well, but this feels like you, and
Hmm.
it feels like, an ad an adaptation that you've had to develop, and it feels like it could be possibly over lifetimes, um, of taking leadership in the face of really terrible odds and being deeply, deeply strong, stoic, um, perhaps even, to the point of cruelty or self-cruelty. Um, but the
Mhm.
interesting thing here is like I want to say the loss of the legs. And it feels like there's two pieces to this. One is um the energetic aspect of what this symbolizes. And the feeling is here also kind of like that there would have been some um, physical damage that that there would have been like a painful imprint there for you of being able to actually stand on your own two feet, quote, quote. Like the feeling I have is somebody who, um, you know, embodied the values of military discipline very deeply, and then having that loss of health through seeing combat, and then being bereft of one sense of self because of that afterwards, after the war. Um, now, um, what else did I want to ask this image? The feeling here is also one of how to it's like there's almost like a wall around this image of um isolation is the wrong word. It's the best one I have right now too. So it is like an isolation in the sense of like being cut off from resources, being cut off from not having the greatest odds at your back kind of thing, and still needing to maintain no matter what the circumstances, that poise, that strength, that leadership. I see her with her lips pursed, her gaze is steely. She knows what to do, and she's going to get through this no matter what. So there's, yeah,
Mhm.
this intense soul level imprint here is what's coming up of
Mhm.
not having to make it through incredible and impossible odds, and
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what the outside looks like because it's all about that steel inside. um and this feels like in this lifetime you've been carrying that on, including with this kind of like strong spine, your leadership, your willingness to put yourself forward for what you believe in. And
Mhm.
at the beginning of the session I was saying, this kind of spiritual dedication to mission, this I would say it's not your first lifetime doing that. Mm, okay, so I'm asking, is this the primary pattern that is driving that experience of scarcity at this time, this kind of past life memory, ongoing past life memory, where it's like relying only on your inner resources and nothing else? Mm, okay, so interestingly, when I ask that question, what I see is a reclining chair. Um, so there's a lot going on there that is also tied in with your family of origin lineage. And so that's the intergenerational piece. There's a kind of like a feeling or a question of like, who do you have loyalty to? And then your loyalty determines whether you get the money or not, or get the resources, fill in the blank. And that feels less related to you as a soul and more related to the intergenerational trauma. Like, whose side are you on? This kind of question.
Mhm.
Let me know if that's making sense the way I'm explaining it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so there would be kind of a worldview that you were born into that kind of poses this dichotomy, this question of like, well, are you? It's kind of like setting up the chessboard for you, and your soul is wanting to say, well, we do not have to live according to the rules of chess. We do not have to live according to this, whose side are you on? So your soul is trying to help your lineage break out of that. Whereas there's a lot more going on, of course, and your both lineages are working on different themes at the same time, but this feeling of like having enough, based on who you swear allegiance to, is a huge thing, and it feels like it comes. Let me see. This is. I'm seeing it on one side of you, so I'm asking: is this your mother's side? Is your father's side?
Um,
Yeah.
it's interesting because it's kind of it feels more like, is it my side with like who I have become,
Mm,
who I always was, but who I've had to fight to be,
yeah.
and who I've developed into, and that feels like it's at odds against my entire family, both my mom's side and my dad's side. But my mom's side is so much softer,
Mm,
I think, like more um I don't really speak to many of them really outside of my mom, but there's problematic allegiance on both sides, I think.
got it. Yes.
It's
And
more, do I am I allegiant to myself or to any of them?
yeah, let me speak to both those things that you said. So I was just kind of probing around the image, just to clarify, I was probing around the image to see if there's any, if it yields anything to know where the question of scarcity comes from, because it looks like it comes more from one side of this family than the other. That both
Oh,
of
that would be
the
my
question
mom's
of
side, I think.
loyalty, and I was like, yeah, this
Hmm.
looks like your mom's side.
Hmm.
Seeming like a loaf of bread and it's surrounded by a pink color. So I was like, is this your mom's side? Um, so it was just kind of another layer to the question. The question of allegiance, um, yeah, it feels like it's an intergenerational thing happening for both sides of your family. And in having been born into this, what feels to me like this kind of battlefield chessboard type of feeling, that it's created an imprint for you where implicitly there's been a part of you kind of always checking like um your your social standing as an outsider,
Hmm.
and um and even as you emotionally and mentally grow out of that paradigm, there is a vibrational imprint. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
That
Yeah.
kind of like, it's just kind of like it feels almost like a computer simulated reality that just sets the backdrop, and that's the feeling to it. It doesn't have to be your reality. It doesn't have to be like this. But it's sort of like the simulation that you got dropped into, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, and in that, I would absolutely, I'm completely on the same page with what you said about, you then carving your own side and carrying forward this, like military general, um, strong back, strong shoulders kind of demeanor, fighting for what you believe is right, um, is in some ways something that's been um, an arena of development for your soul but also a repetition of something that you've already done. It, I mentioned before I started looking at the intergenerational piece that I was seeing a chair. And so the feeling I'm having with both the chair and the original image when I asked about this feeling of sanctuary, this little pearl, is that what your soul is wanting to grow with the question of money is that feeling that you can relax, like it's
Mhm.
not a war anymore. Um,
Mhm.
and finding yourself in a situation, crafting for yourself perhaps, but also through your relationships, through reinforcing ways of being with your environment and within yourself that signal to you the war is over and we don't live in that simulation anymore.
Mhm.
And so what your soul is yearning really is for that rest, for that ease.
Mhm.
Um and that feeling of sanctuary and safety and softness, tenderness, and the openness that can happen to somebody when they were born in peacetime and everybody is accustomed to peacetime, if you could imagine that reality.
Mhm.
So here's some big pieces of what your soul's working on, um, in terms of, I think, perhaps, it's part of the physical healing as well as the financial healing for you. I'm gonna ask for more information here. Okay, so if I ask for more and I get an image of um like a little cricket, I'm asking what does this cricket represent for you? When I ask that question, then the image kind of shows me like the cricket amongst the grass, and then from this viewpoint there's the sky. So there's that feeling of being um able to just be like a small being in the giant universe and feeling held. Um, yeah, there's that particular feeling of being kind of like in the hands of the universe.
Mhm.
All right, so I'm continuing to probe your energy field right now to learn if there's more here. Is there something else that is at this time preventing or thwarting the flow of monetary income into your life? Okay, so I'm hearing my spirit guides, and they're saying, it it's really not your skill, it's not your efforts. And I think they want to kind of emphasize that it's not the quality of the work that you're putting out. Of course not. You know that you're very good at what you do. So to separate those things out is important. Separate the income um, from the idea of career, if that makes sense. I don't know if you've already done that in your head, but they're kind of reinforcing that it's separating the work from the money almost.
Hmm.
Okay, and so I'm asking, what does that look like in concrete? And what is the guidance going forward in terms of what will open the gates of abundance for you and really bring you forward in that direction where you feel secure, you feel like you have everything you need, have the resources that bring you peace and freedom and dignity and everything that you need materially. Okay, so then They're drawing my attention to your energy field and especially lower chakras, and asking you to pose the question of, do you, in your strong values, feel at odds with the possibility of having money? So this kind of like, is it ethically at odds with what you believe in?
Mhm. It used to be,
Mhm.
but um, I I don't necessarily feel that way anymore.
Mhm.
But I have a feeling that's probably part of the block,
Mhm.
like, and why I've been working so hard through so much of that is to try to get that piece unblocked.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's possible it's still sort of a subterranean belief, but not an active, in my consciousness belief.
Yeah. 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 Yeah, and because it gives me that echoey feeling, same as with the what you named the personality disordered kind of presences in your world, where it's like you've moved away, but something left an imprint, like almost like a
Mhm.
scar. But as I was hearing you talk, I was also seeing something else, that maybe kind of speaks to something more present. Um, Words, sorry. I'm just struggling. I'm, like, so deep in images, I'm having a hard time with words. Um, so there's an image here, and it is a circle of people around a fire, and this fire is kind of morphing into a tree with lights on it, and then back to a fire and back to a tree. It feels like a beautiful community space. It feels like, the specialness of being around a campfire with a group of people and having this camaraderie and, the reverence that happens around a fire, that kind of thing. Um, and so there's a feeling that, again, we're kind of dealing with a healing of a past life imprint here for you, of being in war and being in leadership and being left to really your inner resources and your resolve and your inner power and your leadership, but bereft from support from the outside, in the way that, if I kind of switch the dial back into the idea of like sanctuary, rest, the chair, being able to relax and kind of let your back go. um, and then this image of a campfire comes up, and then there's this beautiful illuminated tree in the middle. So when you spoke, it's like as though the images were shifting themselves to reveal that, yes, there's kind of these old imprints, but also the bigger imprint that's been left sort of again implicitly is either you move and shake things or nothing moves. And your soul is other it's rather kind of yearning to have a lot more community support, and furthermore, so it's like two levels. One is like at a social level, let's say like community, peer community, fellow professionals working together to generate, marketing or whatever. More than just marketing, more like almost like a tribe of people creating mutual support and a safety net together.
Mhm.
And so there's that as kind of like the soul yearning there, and at a deeper level, the soul wanting to relearn that thriving is possible in this world, that it's not all a battle. um I want to emphasize that I can see here, this is not all who you are. I see, in this lifetime, you are a much softer person then this I'm isolating this military thing because that's what's coming up as what's causing friction for you. In this lifetime, you're this creative, empathic person, okay? So just want to make that clear that this is like I'm not pigeonholing you. Um,
Oh,
but
no, but the military image, though, and the, like, having to only rely on inner resources and this feeling of being in a war and
mhm,
battle, like, that is strongly resonant, and you could describe parts of my personality that way.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
But also the softness and the creativity, and, like, that's a big part of me too. But
Yeah,
that's also the parts that sort of get pushed.
yeah, yeah. And well, and I wanted to name those as well. So it doesn't seem like I'm like, you're so hard, you know. Yes, you are. You're very strong. You're very strong.
Yeah.
I said at the beginning, you're very values driven. You're very much altruistically driven. And two, this military lifetime taught you to think about, what the situation needs, not what you need.
Mhm.
Um, I hear like my guide sort of underlining that as like this is a very strong pattern in the autoimmunity as well. What does the situation
Mm.
need? What is needed? What is required of me rather than what do I require to thrive?
Mm.
I know that there's other symbolism to autoimmunity, but this feels like it's a chain link towards that as well.
Mhm.
So what your soul is wanting to learn is what is it like to feel held in a network of synergy and cohesiveness, and where there's kind of this mutual welfare, um, where everybody contributes and the whole is way more than the sum of the parts, which is again also what I'm feeling as the kind of what's weighing you down is like, oh, the sum of the parts never comes together into a whole in terms of the efforts that you're putting into providing yourself with a full, the whole income that you need.
Mhm.
Um, okay, so another pattern is arising here that is parallel, and these are the two primary ones. Um, Let me just let the images settle for a moment so I can describe them. There is sort of like a feeling here. There's like the feeling is like skimming off the top. Like I see like a person, like a woman's hand with long nails, kind of like dipping a finger into a pastry, but it's not hers. And then there's this kind of feeling at an energetic level that you do often kind of like give more than it's warranted, again because you believe in it and because you want um the outcome of the situation to be what matters, like the well-being of your patients or your clients. Um and the feeling I have here is that there's kind of like there's a bit of self-preservation missing. You've learned self-preservation through your boundaries with your family, but it's like you're still working on that. Um,
Mhm.
and there's a feeling like almost like in the bent that you've inherited from this past life, um, you kind of developed a bit of blinders in terms of, and this is hard to describe because it's like so subtle almost. Um, in terms of like, well, the best way I can put it is like thinking like a business person rather than a service person. Um, where and this could be where like remnants of this like, well, is it ethical to make money? could remain, where it's like for you the point of the work comes first and not for it to kind of like sustain you in a scalable way, but you want to get there. And I feel like you've been kind of like cracking at this nut, trying to figure out,
Hmm.
well, what's the difference to turn this from like my service and why is it not like providing me with enough? But um it's like a weird extension of what I was saying before. It requires this mindset shift to look at it kind of like um from this kind of social network, social systems perspective. Um yeah, the words are failing me very hard in this
Hmm.
interesting. Um yeah. So let me see if I can come up with better language to explain what I'm trying to say. There is a shift that you're wanting to make um because the current economy does not support you just simply like doing your service and getting enough money for it. But that's not your fault. It's just the system being stupid and messed up. And so partially the sticking point is that it's the system being stupid and messed up.
Hmm.
And yet a new system has not been put into place yet. And that is in part because you're very good at the self leadership thing. So it's like it creates the blinder that um kind of blocks you from looking at the problem from this kind of like almost more opportunistic side, but it would be like a healthy opportunism, like I help you, you help me, this person, like, and then creating this
Mm.
kind of like horizontal grassroots um structure to counter the messed up system. Let me know if
Okay.
that's making sense. I feel like I'm stumbling a little bit because this is so tangled for
Yeah.
you. And
Yeah. Well, it feels tangled
it is
to
and it
me
is
in the
tangled.
inside.
And I
Yeah.
want to say like I really, really empathize because it's like it's hard for you to put the locus of control outside yourself. And in this situation, you kind of have to a little bit.
Yeah.
And by doing so, kind of like realizing, okay, what's mine to do and what's mine to kind of like leave. And that's
Um,
that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. So that's where still kind of like the ethics gets in the way because it's like it should be different. It should be, that the economic system is for the welfare of human beings and that by putting in certain amount of hours of work you get paid enough to live.
mhm,
um but
mhm.
because this is not like that right now and it never has been in your lifetime, then
Right.
nothing that you could do from that perspective would bring you enough income.
Hmm.
Ironic, I know.
Yeah, that makes sense though. I mean, I feel like that's that block that I keep coming up
Hmm.
against. It's like no matter how hard I work and how much I do, particularly in terms of like website building and marketing
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
all of these like things, it's like it doesn't ever quite create the momentum to get me or the energy to get me
Yeah.
where I need to go. And I definitely feel this like economy
Hmm.
part.
Hmm.
Um, like there's a systems issue that I'm coming up against.
Yeah.
And that I sense that particular issue, which is out of my control, is something that will continue to get worse.
Hmm.
Um, and so it is kind of like, yeah, like like how do I navigate
Yeah.
that?
Right. Okay. So then I'm gonna ask that question, and I'm starting to feel kind of like what you shared about your psychic abilities and having a particularly strong opening at the moment, even though you've known yourself to be intuitive perhaps for a long time. This feels like that relates.
Mm.
So I'm just going to pose the question of your field, of your guides, of our um, currently collaborating spirit team. What is the pathway or the bridge out of that paradigm for you? Okay, I'll start describing the image. It's already like a full on movie. So the picture is of you kind of walking over a bridge, and there's an archway. The archway is like a pastel violet or lavender color. And it feels like on the other side, so it's like you're crossing first, and on the other side, there's like a pond with water lilies. It looks like very much like Zen Japanese garden type imagery. And at the doorway is a spider monkey. And I'm seeing the monkey kind of like wanting to grab your hand, like coaxing you inward, like or to cross the threshold. Um, and it feels like there's more than one. Like there's like little baby ones, and there's a sense here of multi-layered meaning here, but almost like shortly after the before the bridge ends, like as you cross the threshold, and then there's the other side of the bridge. There's like a lot of murky unknowns. So I'm gonna explore those further, but tell you first what's this? What is this little monkey or monkeys kind of pulling you over to the other side? Mm, there's a definite sense of lightness and humor to them. They're adorable. Um, so there's this energy, it is light, it has humor. And okay, so then they're showing me, like, you know how in some Asian cities, like there's monkeys around and they
Hmm.
steal stuff.
Yeah.
They're like kind of shameless in taking what they want. And this is what's being shown for you. There's like a um if you can kind of picture the military leader and the monkey side to side, what a switch in attitude that is like undisciplined, and it is about noticing the feeling of want and the immediacy of want. So there's something here about sinking into the body to the felt sense of desire and
Mhm.
wanting and longing, and being attuned to and identifying what that is without necessarily jumping to the long-term goal of that. So it is really being put in contrast with the discipline of the military self that
Mhm.
says like, okay, here's the strategic steps, and then at the end of this long campaign, I will reach the long-term goal. And at no point in that is there self-gratification. But the monkey
Mhm.
is saying self gratification is going to open the door energetically for you to get to kind of create this loop of bodily knowing of here's how you get what you need.
Mhm.
I don't know if you as a psychologist are like familiar with this thing called the satisfaction cycle.
No, I don't think so.
I'm gonna look up a link for you when we're done. I need to write this down. But yeah, it's like a somatic, I think it's 5 steps. Um, satisfaction cycle. I'm writing that down. It's like I think it's 5 steps, and then it's like reaching is one of the steps, and so it's like the somatic thing that we do every time we interact with the world. There's like a moment of like sensing what we want, reaching, grabbing, bringing it in, and then that's the satisfaction cycle. And then if we explore kind of like our relationship to each one of those steps, we can get better at getting our needs satisfied. What this monkey is showing me is that that's the real question here. How do you get your needs satisfied? It's not ultimately about money, although money is the a primary piece in that, but it's about the immediacy of satisfaction and the availability of it, that your soul has kind of projected satisfaction in a horizon so far away that it never gets there.
Mhm.
And the goalpost is always moving. Now, this
Mhm.
is not to negate what I said before, the paradox that you're existing also in a system that thwarts the satisfaction of needs. But that is also highlighted for you because there's an affinity between that soul pattern and the environmental space that you're in. Um, so humor and the desire and willingness to explore what's your own relationship to gratification, especially instant gratification, um and sensing and claiming needs in a moment by moment basis.
Mhm.
I'm asking them much if they want to show me anything else about this. Yes, there's a flying fish also. I'm asking now what I told you the images were
This place is so fun. Monkeys and flying fish.
monkeys and flying fish and a beautiful pond
Pond.
full of flowers and yeah, what else? What does the flying fish communicate in this space? I feel like the flying fish is sort of a messenger from your immune system. So
Hmm.
I'm asking, what is the message? It's like flying over the bridge very quickly, and I'm seeing the light shining through the fins, like kind of like an iridescent light come as it shines through the fins. Just following the flight and the kind of diving and jumping back out. Yeah, okay. Yeah. So there's an interesting interplay here between your body and your burgeoning psychic opening abilities.
Hmm.
Um, and so the flying fish is kind of like both signifying your immune system and signifying your psychic abilities. And the way that that makes sense in this particular picture is that um, our psychic abilities kind of take us beyond ourselves into a place of consciousness. And because of that, we kind of are in an interplay between like self and other, my energy and the energies of the environment um, constantly. And that's similar to the immune system. So this flying fish is kind of signifying something where your healing does actually have a lot to do with your psychic abilities, as though
Hmm.
your immune system wanted you to recognize that you're psychic the whole time, and that um that's like it wouldn't leave you alone until you realize that.
Huh.
Yeah. And it's like there's a sense of incredible wonder and awe to this picture. like a blossoming from the inside, um,
Mm-hmm.
glowing from within your core, rising up through your body and kind of out your eyes and out your mouth.
Mm,
Um, so while some of your healing has been about shedding a lot of the toxicity patterns of people taking from you more than was warranted, all these different things. Um, there's an element of it that is actually about claiming yourself as more than just this personality and just more as a spiritual being,
mm-hmm.
as a soul, and as somebody who is deeply, deeply connected.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. It's like as though this whole time it would look to the outside like you are living your purpose, but there's like a secret further layer of purpose that is now just being uncovered. And so it's as though the illness wanted to kind of stop you in your tracks and tell you this is not all there is. Even though what you're doing
Mm-hmm.
is meaningful and not to be abandoned, it's
Mm-hmm.
not the end goal in that sense. It's not the ultimate accomplishment of your soul this lifetime. So
Mm-hmm.
this is
Mm-hmm.
very uncharted as yet. So I'm seeing the fish kind of like going out into this turquoise water and into the horizon, and that's beautiful, but there's not a lot of other elements just yet. Um,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
yeah.
it's pretty uncharted.
Mm,
Yeah, it's super uncharted and very strong.
mhm,
And it
mhm,
goes, I don't really carry a specific belief system at all, but like I I sort of at one point in my life really I feel like abandoned spirituality
mhm,
as almost like this is not a pragmatic thing.
mhm.
And it feels like that is shifting. And so there's this sort of learning
Yeah.
and this very much like walking into a mystery.
Mhm. Yes, yes. Yes, and this is like yeah, like it's a big message from the illness that there's more to life than just the pragmatic and the material. And it's ironic because a lot of spiritual healing paradigms, they talk about correcting the imbalance. What is it that you are doing to shut down life force or whatever else? Um, but sometimes illnesses are also kind of spiritual messengers in this kind of more, no, wait, you forgot something kind of way. And this seems like it's both for you.
Mm-hmm.
Um, let me see if there's
Hmm.
anything else there, but did you have something that
I
you
have I had a question
go ahead?
about that. Um, I have a session, a meeting of sorts scheduled with a colleague who I've shared these like burgeoning psychic abilities with.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants to do like a session with me, kind of like this exploration. Um, and I'm good with that. I've kind of explained to him how what an amateur I am and how I don't know what I'm doing
Yeah.
at all, but it's like a take insight if there's insight. And and there are many, many people that I've shared what's happening are very interested and they're
Mm,
all colleagues. All of
yeah.
them are colleagues.
Yes.
And they want to uh they're very open to me helping them.
Mm,
And I feel very scared in
Mhm.
some ways of this ability that's happening, because I'm scared of steering people in the wrong direction, or I'm scared of like something being my direction for someone opposed to it truly being theirs.
Mm,
And I'm scared of kind of just making, I don't know, making mistakes in it.
mhm.
And there's this big part of me that feels very anti-guru, very like anti like there's I have a big relationship with spirituality that isn't necessarily my own. It's part of my own history, but it's kind of like I don't trust a lot of religious institutions or spiritual institutions. Like I've seen so much harm done, and some of that has been directed towards me.
Mhm.
And I feel a lot of people sort of get sucked into a certain illusion or a power that exists
Mhm.
there, and I've seen that get manipulated, and I have some fear around my own capabilities. Not that I would intentionally do that, because I
Mhm.
wouldn't.
Yeah.
But there's a fear. I don't know. There's this fear there that comes up with claiming myself more as a spiritual being and something that isn't just for me, but also is for others.
Yeah, that's very understandable. I've been there. I question these things myself a lot. So
Hmm.
this is not foreign to me personally, just not even just from a psychic perspective, understanding what you're saying, but I think
Hmm.
it is an ongoing dance, personally, professionally for me. So I can very much empathize as a human being doing that.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Uh, would you like me to ask about that as well in the space?
Yes. Sure.
Yeah. So, um, what is the path for Hannah to claim her abilities in service, being as it is that already her environment is asking this of her and reflecting back to her that this is valuable? Um, okay, so two energies are coming, and one is a they're like two roads almost. Um, one is made out of yellow and the other one is made out of purple. And so the yellow is about structure. It's about what will help you feel more confident is to actually have structured mental tools to know when you are in integrity, when you're, kind of connecting with the energy that you're being asked to connect with and so on. Do I like is it that you're like also doing kind of spontaneous readings or does it like are you
Yes.
into like yeah, past lifey type
Hmm.
things, akashic record type things?
No, not even like nothing structured. It's just stuff
It's just
popping in.
start flowing.
It's happening. Yeah, we'll start talking about something, and then
Okay.
it's just this part of me lights up.
Yep. So I'm feeling like you could get there too, like also doing past life readings and things like that. It feels to me like you have some kind of particular access code to kind of the origin pattern of people, sort of a
Yeah.
akashic record type things feel like what you're tapping into, but just you're doing what I'm doing.
Yeah. 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 I
Yes.
mean, I've been able to pick up on people's past life themes and even specific lives, and been I've seen spirit guides of others.
Hmm.
I feel like I have almost no access to my own, but like I
Hard
feel
to be
I
objective
can
with
feel
your
the
yeah.
yeah.
Well,
Hmm.
it's a different problem too because it's distance. Um, because well, that's a whole other thing. But let me just kind of go back to the yellow piece, the yellow kind of line that is being drawn ahead of you. So this is structure and kind of structural tools that help you to kind of know when you're on the right track and when you're not and when you should be saying I don't know and that kind of thing. Like so those would be the things that kind of keep you in integrity or create a container where you can share this and be okay with whatever comes.
Mhm.
Um, so that I'll speak more to that in a minute. And then the other thing is, in fact, the purple is about making a more direct connection to spirit guides, more direct connection to like support on the spiritual side, where there's kind of like grace, like the energy of grace, the energy of mercy, the energy of surrender, as a field from which you come into these connections with people,
Mhm.
so that you can, to the best of your abilities, be a conduit. And that's the kind of situation too where it's like you can make that explicit and nobody can put you on a pedestal because you're just, you know it's there's a fine line there between, oh, I'm channeling and then taking that in the wrong direction. But there is a right way to do this kind of surrender into a greater field, that supports
Mhm.
you and that also keeps you in integrity. Um,
Mhm.
so I think these two things in parallel will give you confidence. It's normal if you're just kind of suddenly starting to have kind of bursts of information to be like really confused because there's no context.
Mhm.
Um, so, I can share some things that you can do to kind of give you confidence to know what's what, but the confidence really comes from having concrete feedback. And I don't just mean like when you're reading a person, there's a lot of subjectivity there. But if you pose yourself the challenge of reading objective things like objects, places, and outcomes, then you will get much more black and white feedback that will help you hone that part of you that wants the integrity of what am I saying here? Can I know this?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, so yeah, so it's a whole practice that you can do for yourself to give yourself the tangible proof that of when you're on and when you're not on. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been doing that a little bit,
That's
with
great. I
ways
love
that I yeah.
that.
Yeah, I like things like I can feel people who used to live in homes or even
Mhm,
current
mhm.
owners. I can pick up a lot about them, and I've been able to verify
Yeah.
through history or through living like the living people, their own validation of like what I was picking up. And I've been able to pick up the people from the past that were associated with like wars and battlefields and places
Mhm,
that I was in. And
mhm.
then I was able to validate through research the person that I was picking up on. And I
Very cool.
picked up a lot of details.
That's very cool.
So yeah, stuff like that. And it's like, oh, well, maybe I am picking up on real stuff. Like,
Yeah, you are. And it's interesting that you said that because I keep feeling like you have something to do with like the roots or the history of things. So that I don't know if that's all that you will do, but it was coming up as a feeling around you.
mhm,
Um so yeah, so that's a fantastic practice. Continue doing that. You can set yourself up to do all kinds of challenges, both past focused or future focused, or like I said, object focused. Like if you had somebody kind of say like, pick an object for me and then I have to describe it,
mm, mhm,
that kind of thing, where
mhm.
it's something that again is like very black and white, perhaps a little bit more immediate than like finding the history of a person whose imprint they left in a place. Um, but don't stop doing that if that's something that's working for you. um, and then the other thing that's gonna probably give you confidence is still part of the structure question. The yellow energy is
Mhm,
learning the vocabulary of your symbolic mind. So if
Mm-hmm.
if you're having feelings, if you're seeing pictures, just as I'm describing to you some pictures, seeing colors, what do they all mean? And that also is something that you develop through feedback.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you might see something and it's unexplained. It's not something literal that's happening for the person, for example, but it's like, oh, I keep seeing, I don't know, a bottle. And what does the bottle mean?
Mm-hmm.
And then learning, oh, typically when I see bottles, it means bottled up feelings. I don't know. Just
Yeah.
using that
Mm-hmm.
as an example.
Mm-hmm. I see when I'm working with clients, which is not anything, we're not doing anything psychic,
Hmm.
but these things will come to me sometimes and they'll see words
Yeah.
and I'll see like these like repetitive images
Hmm.
that have a lot to do with movement. Like it's not like a still picture, like there's an action happening a lot of
Like
times.
morphing or like a video.
Or like I'll see someone pulling on something. It's like there's like pulling, and I'll mention it in some context, and it will have a huge impact.
Yeah, yeah, and that's how it works. It's a little different to do it in the midst of, like, let's say, a counseling session, because then you're firing on all cylinders, so to speak, because you're in your regular present awareness with your emotional awareness and your intellectual awareness. And see if perhaps just going into the intuitive place, if you have like situations where you can do that,
Hmm.
see what changes there. Because I think that what I've seen from a lot of us who are working on developing intuitive capacities is that we maybe expect them to function simultaneously with our regular awareness, and it's better to help them develop separately. Um,
Mm-hmm.
like, we'll not, I'm not saying that you're doing this, but I'm just saying this is a trend that I've noticed where
Hmm.
we'll kind of just expect the psychic, the intuitive, to just kind of look at you and know the thing. And then if you're being intuitive, then there could be like an expectation to just kind of know the whole thing. And at least what works for me is to let the message unfold by allowing it to be in its own kind of intuitive space. Um, and that doesn't mean that, like, things that you get spontaneously are not going to be meaningful, and then the only way to do it is the thing I'm saying. It's just kind of like if you want to keep developing it and get to know your own language with it or your own way with it, then um, give yourself permission not to be in like a verbal space necessarily, or to be able to kind of just write or draw or be inward, and giving the information kind of time to unfold can also give you more confidence with it.
Hmm.
So
That makes sense.
yeah, that
Hmm.
all belongs with the structure piece. And with the spirit guides, I feel like this is like the structure piece that I just described is like a path unfolding in front of you. It's long and straight. So it seems like it's a pretty straightforward thing to do, that you kind of just have to either go to some books, pick up the skills, just kind of create a container for yourself or a routine or protocol that you use. And then you're going to have this kind of feeling of like, okay, this is repeatable. I can kind of manage it in a way that I can rely on.
Hmm.
The other piece, the more esoteric kind of like collaboration with spirit, surrender piece, it shows up like a little bit of like, it's a gentle roller coaster. It's not like, whoa, super wild.
Hmm.
But it's like a sloping up and down thing.
Hmm.
So that looks to me like it's more of a journey for you.
Hmm.
And I'm asking, what are the actions that you would be best served to take in order to start that journey? Okay, so what I'm hearing is This could be a place where you actively actually take like a mediumship class. This looks like
Uh-huh.
a place where being surrounded with other people who share this focus would actually also help you with the other thing of like not going it alone and having this
Mhm.
kind of network of community.
Mhm.
You could do that for both, but it feels almost like you're ready to roll almost in the protocols section of all this. So it's almost like you wouldn't necessarily need it, but you could benefit from like, joining a group, taking classes. For the spirit
Uh-huh.
guides piece, it feels like, yeah, there's more of a somatic process of attunement to happen there. A somatic process of like learning the subtle signals that your guides are with you, and actually building, using your energy and your focus to build a two-way connection that kind of strengthens over time. And for that, there's something there about like transmission, like somebody who's already like really good at doing that, a teacher, mentor, and being surrounded with people trying the same thing. It's like if there's a magnetic attraction there, something that would ease the process for you, unlock some things. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's what
Mhm.
that looks like. I mean, it's not like you couldn't get started already on your own for sure, but
Mhm.
shared practice looks like the way to go there.
Yeah, that resonates.
Mhm.
Mhm. Yeah, that resonates for sure.
Exciting stuff. Uh,
Yeah.
are you feeling more or less complete? I know that we barely touched the health piece and barely touched the trauma healing family of origin piece, and yet it feels to me like we went far and wide.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm curious, um, I'm curious if the sort of the autoimmunity, or autoimmune disorder that is related to it's almost like it's what I heard you say was it's almost like it was like a sign, like a friction somehow.
Mhm.
Like I wasn't living that part. And I guess I'm curious if that will be a path, like a pathway of healing and allowing my body to relax because it's this like there's this like feeling of like I can't relax, and
Yeah.
that feels so deeply internal of
Yeah.
like my soul can't relax, like it's not safe to relax, and it feels that's related to trauma. It's related to all this deep stuff, and I'm curious if the psychic path might be something that helps me with that of just continuing to explore it and let it grow how it wants to grow.
Here's how I would harvest. I want to say yes in principle, but I also want to harvest in service of your question. I want to harvest the images,
Okay.
that to me, like this is how I would summarize what I saw, what I read. Um, so the healing process for you is related to this past life, this military past life, and the imprints is related to the intergenerational healing about like the what I call the chessboard simulation.
Mm-hmm.
um, and so it's like there's a component of basically um, bringing that military soul into a place of sanctuary and rest, which was, the chair and the little pearl that is inside like a sanctuary. Um, and so then that speaks completely to what you said, the ability to rest. But that is only part of the answer in the sense of, you can develop that through this whole like needs gratification, thinking less long term, ironically.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's a pragmatic thing. Um, Even though it seems like it's kind of like this foolish thing to do, it's a 180-degree flip from that soul part's perspective
Mm-hmm.
to teach that soul part that it is okay to receive nourishment or what it feels it wants in the moment. So there's kind of like a repatterning piece still to be done.
Mhm.
Then, now the part where I'm like, yes to your question. Um, the the flying fish image and these two roads, one of like structuring your psychic perceptions and the other one surrendering into this greater network of support. Um, these two highly, highly serve your healing. Absolutely, yes. No question about it. 100%.
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
yes, and so this ties back in with what I was seeing in terms of, the illness is not just about you healing an imbalance, but it's also kind of flagging the fact that you've not reached the final purpose of your life, and that the final purpose of your life includes this psychic and spiritual perspective. So it's like almost like the illness, you can think about it as an initiatory process, if you will, of saying,
Mhm.
like, you need to cross this threshold into this greater reality for the healing to fully happen. Not just because that's going to heal you, but because this is kind of part of what you came here to offer. It's a joy to give rather than a chore from the
Huh.
place. Um, and I'm not saying that
Hmm.
all of your giving is a chore, but there's that soul part that's kind of very duty bound. Um, so then the the healing that is there for you at this point, what I can see so far is that it will shift your perspective from this kind of material only um side of that soul part that's like, here's the cut and dried realities of war, to we're actually held in this magical container of spirit and consciousness. And so that part of your soul needs to see that. And
Hmm.
furthermore, the purple gentle roller coaster is the learning to kind of open up any barriers and boundaries that you had to create to contain yourself in that duty bound self,
Mhm.
um, into being held and supported by spirit in all of your endeavors, in your physical and emotional thriving, and in your spiritual mission. And so that is kind of like a sense more of like learning that life loves you and that you are co-creating with this benevolent intelligence, and you're not doing it all alone. So that's kind of what the purple road signifies. This kind of like, you're here as like representative or ambassador from spirit, and in spirit there's a whole bunch of beings that want you to succeed, and not just succeed but thrive.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so that's kind of what your soul is actually setting itself up for. It's wanting to reclaim that, model that, experience that, and so then no longer, let's say in the practical day to day, even the money making piece, striving from that strategic place, but actually co creating with spirit through cool opportunities, synchronicities, the right connection at the right time. It's like you're just kind of hitting all these perfect turning points. And then abundance flows from there because it's being orchestrated together. And so
Mhm.
all of that is what's kind of in store for you. And this, like, I'm looking at it, big picture, it's a big vista. But that's what it looks like your soul's trying to create.
Huh.
Cool, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, hmm. Yeah, it's fascinating. Um, I am curious about a part of this, um, with the satisfaction and the sort of learning to be more in the moment and really listening and tuning in to want and
Mhm,
desire and taking it.
mhm.
Um, I feel that, and I feel like a block in that for me is money.
Yeah.
Like
Mhm,
I will want to do something for myself or create something, and then um I'm literally trying to make a decision right now around money.
mm,
um Doing you know an improvement to my home, and I'm debating whether or not to go into debt around making this improvement.
mm, mhm.
um and the improvement real I'm like, I can live with this imperfection longer, like I'll save my money, like da 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 da. But that dynamic it feels like such a strong pattern in me
Yeah.
of like not giving myself things that I want, or not being able to, because it's
Mhm.
just like, oh, like that's not, like, I am struggling with money. It hasn't I shouldn't be spending that money. Like
Yeah.
it feels, but I also hear you speaking to working through that. So that's a block whenever I feel like I can give myself the things that I want frequently. And there's this like discipline part though
Yeah.
that gets in the way. And there's a lot of fear of like financial insecurity
Mhm.
that comes up in that for me.
Yeah. Yeah, so, um, just putting that question in the space here in my screen, and the money block comes up as a kind of brown gray color. And it's interesting, it has kind of like this shape. I'm having a hard time describing it, but it's um like a two-pronged shape. And if I put it here in the midst of these positive images that like your flower and this crossing of the bridge, I'm asking for sacred guides to show us at this time what is the pattern breaker here? What is it that is going to give you a reliable pathway to leave this scarcity fear feeling behind? Hmm. So the image that comes is the um, image of a dragonfly's wing falling softly on this big block of gray energy. It has iridescent shimmers to it as the light hits it, and it's very, very gentle and delicate. So, dragonflies in the language of my images often represent communication with spirit. So it's one of the animals that shows up for mediumship. And so the dragonfly's wing in this case feels like it represents that, and it's also very ephemeral and light. So what I'm seeing here is the contrast between the heaviness of the pattern energy and the lightness of this wing. And so what I'm sensing is that the sticking place happens because you haven't developed yet this trust in spirit. You haven't kind of built a body of experience where you know that spirit has your back. That's totally legitimate. Um, and so just like what we were saying in terms of creating confidence in your psychic abilities, this is a part of the path as well. And creating trust in the strength and um, robustness of a dragonfly's wing. Like from our human perspective, they seem so fragile, but they are, engineering wise, like incredibly mighty and powerful. And so here's an element too of like, rather than jumping to necessarily like things where you would spend a lot of money, starting to develop trust with little things, much more immediate things. So I heard that, that you do try to do nice things for yourself when they don't cost so much.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm wondering if here could be like the kind of exercise where there's a small thing that you want and you were to pray to spirit, and bring in a lot of gratitude and positivity into that prayer about the thing that you want. And so that could start with little things, just kind of to test the water and kind of see how that goes. It could be around your renovation, asking for
Mhm.
signs, asking for opportunities, asking for shows of support, asking for the thing you want.
Mhm.
Um, and at the same time, there was also this kind of piece about, rather than focusing on the outcome, focusing on the feeling of satisfaction. It's like at a somatic level, cultivating and amplifying that feeling. So then that's something that you can do every day, when you eat a food you love or wear a piece of clothing that you love or anything that kind of makes you go, "Ah, I really wanted that and now I have it." Um,
Mhm.
there's Yeah, and what I'm hearing is, especially, there will be moments where you want something emotionally, like, if you wanted a hug, but you're in a situation where you have to wait until you meet with a person that you trust enough to ask for a hug. But to take little risks emotionally around asking for what you want in that sense.
Mhm.
Identifying those things where it's like, oh, this feels easy to ask for, and this feels easy to kind of put myself out there about, and this feels like it should be easy, but it isn't. And working at that edge, increasing your feeling of vulnerability and trust around being able to be vulnerable without being hurt or taken advantage of.
Mhm.
What I'm hearing is that the money piece, the fear is to be at the mercy of, like, not have enough resources to be able to be autonomous and make your own decisions and choose your own path. And so there's an element here to the development of financial freedom that is to do more with like relying on the environment to provide. And for that, the environment, you need to cultivate that feeling that you can kind of open up and be vulnerable and risk, and then you're going to actually get something back for it. So
Mm.
there's that element, and the element of cultivating that trust with spirit, knowing that here, like the juxtaposition of the dragonfly's wing with this like heavier thing. It's like you can't fight fire with fire in this case. You can't fight scarcity with determination in that way. It's like the high road lies through kind of becoming very sensitive and very aware to kind of like glimmers of hope and excitement, and those moments where like, should I open my heart? This is a chance to open my heart. Oh no, I'm not going to do it. No, yes, I am going to do it. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like a rehab kind of period. Like, don't necessarily like push yourself to be like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to manifest. Like, it feels so heavy. Um, where this is
Mhm.
like almost like a central process for you.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Let me know if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, it really does.
Okay, good.
Um, like it being a central process and something that I gently tune into
Mhm.
and lightly tune into,
Yeah.
opposed to like making it some sort of duty.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's really about connection. It's about you
Mhm.
learning to feel like there are others here with you. So,
Mhm.
identifying people that you can, again, like, risk asking for help and even kind of having a kerfuffle in the process and still coming back to the open heart.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah. Ah, great. So I'm kind of feeling like we could wrap up here. Let me know if that's good with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, we really covered a lot.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate so much the opportunity to do this with you. And is there anything else that you wanted to share from your side about what it's been like to hear all this, or yeah, anything?
Yeah. Yeah, this was all um very on point. Um and the themes around this sort of like military type like determination and always having to rely only on my inner resources and not like this feeling of not having access to other types of resources.
Mhm.
And that really ties into like this feeling of like it's just me. It's just me here. Like I'm alone in this. And that is so powerfully strong in me. And I know I don't know if you know a lot about the Enneagram, but I'm a practitioner in the Enneagram, and you've described my Enneagram type like pretty uh, like right on the money.
Oh, no way. Which
um,
are you? Are you like a one or
no, I'm a self-preservation four.
oh, that makes total sense.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I get that.
And that's the pattern. And it looks can look a lot like type one.
Mhm.
And that sort of combo of that like deep feeling, deep creativity, empathetic with also this kind of military kind of
Mm.
hard, harsh disciplinarian,
Yep.
but more like self.
Yep. Mhm.
That relationship is huge. And yeah, I'm interested to at some point hear more about my family and about that relationship because yeah, the intergenerational piece that you were speaking to is just huge. Um,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
it's huge.
I could see that.
And
Absolutely.
uh and aids it even more in that feeling of being alone. That like the harder not the harder, but the more it is all hard, but like the the deeper I go into my own health and into my own um pathway, um the more alone
Mm.
um all of that feels. So yeah, so that's what I like. All of this is resonates and it all feels really connected.
Mhm.
Um, and the pieces about satisfaction and learning to um, be in that. Can you still hear me?
Yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay, my headphones died, so I switched to different audio. Um, yeah, all of that resonated, and the piece that was surprising and fascinating to hear was about the connection between autoimmune disorder and mm, rep- repression of spirituality or repression of these like,
Mhm.
and that being kind of a signal, or rather it sounded a lot more like an invitation.
Yes.
And it almost like, okay, it's like I'm gonna keep it, and not in like a threatening way, but it's like, oh, I'm gonna keep having these issues um if I don't let these parts of me that want to expand.
That's what it looks like.
Yeah.
No pressure.
I know. Oh my gosh. It's a pretty funny thing to happen.
Yeah, I can totally I've been chronically ill for, I don't know, over a decade, and so I'm like, only another chronically ill person gets the humor of this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. It really is funny.
yeah,
Like, but I could sense that there was something more to this. And that I'm receiving kind of cutting edge expertise in the medical land, and healing this. And I'm very fortunate in that way.
mm,
And it's been really, really hard. And
yeah,
I just like, yeah, I feel like my doctor will keep giving these great interventions. And I have this hesitation in me around, I don't know if that's the ticket anymore.
mhm,
Like, I think I've taken it as far as I can go, but I don't know. It's like, I don't know what the next part is after this. And so that really provided some clarification. I
yeah.
was surprised. I was surprised to hear that answer. Oh, not fully surprised, but like, yeah, I
Yes, just your psychic abilities, they cannot be ignored. The
it's just that
just
part.
yeah. Yes, and yeah, that I understand that there's complexities around it, and I'm just joking right now, but it's true. There's a big, it's not that like that for everybody, but for some people it just comes up like that. That it's like, no, this is the emergence of a deeper expression of your soul self on Earth, and so it's like the body almost saying like, I'm not gonna leave you alone until you let this happen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I really I like that. That feels freeing in some ways, because
Mhm.
I think that I was thinking that the roots of it were in things that were unhealed.
Yeah.
Um, and and I've been doing so much in that arena. It feels kind of like how could that possibly be it still?
Right, yes, absolutely, yeah,
So it feels so much more gratifying, freer to
yeah,
think about this as an invitation to expansion into something else, and not necessarily looking backwards. It feels like a looking to the future instead of a looking behind.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and if I had to name only one unhealed thing in your case, it would be, like, the restoration of connection and that feeling of relaxation and being able to rest because you're
Yeah.
the only one carrying the responsibility for everything.
Yeah.
And so those two things, even the quote unhealed part, goes hand in hand with bringing your spiritual and psychic self out because that's how you will have a felt sense of spirit having your back.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing all that. That's wonderful to hear for me. Um, it's always an honor and an intimate kind of empathic experience to go through these images and messages with you. And so um yeah, so then getting your impressions back is also kind of very gratifying for me, so thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I could tell that, I already have, learning my body signs of when something is connected and when something is working for
Mhm,
me, like spiritually, or when that connection is happening. And
mhm,
um, I was like, I get this like pain in the top of, or like the very front of my forehead.
mhm.
And it's like this like pain, this like light, dull pain there. And that's one of my signs that I'm interacting with psychic energy in myself and I'm receiving it somehow from someone else or from some other source.
Yeah.
And so that started happening to me last night. and
Oh, wow.
and then I started hearing uh like like and then during our session I was feeling that, and then I could feel these little tiny surges of energy going around my body,
Mhm.
which is always a sign for me that like I'm on what I'm doing is on the right path, and that it's something that's a good direction, and that there's something kind of healing and psychic going on.
Wow, that's very cool, and I did actually wanna tell you that when I was meditating before we started our session, already, like, there was images pouring in like crazy, and I couldn't keep track of them all, so I was like, "Okay, well, you're gonna have to come back."
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely it seemed like something was already happening before we even started, for sure.
Yeah. That